By Who Are They? The Witch on the Window. Do you believe in ghosts? There are moments in my life where I have been asked this question, and every time I would answer, I'm not sure. I cannot easily reject it, because I know you cannot deny something that can't be seen by the naked eye alone. But accepting the possibility of an unknown and unseen being hovering near me at any place in time is quite unsettling. Though my acceptance of this particular issue is vague, my younger sister, on the other hand, has a different problem. Ever since she was young, she would always claim to see things that people don't normally see. My father used to tell me that when they were both driving along the federal highway, they came across a huge car pileup and an ambulance near it. My father would describe the scene as horrific, as the cars were twisted and bent out of proportion. His first thought that there was no way that anyone could have survived it. And as they drove past, my sister looked and said, "Why is that man standing with all his clothes red and dirty?" My father, eyes still focusing on the road, was astonished by that person's luck and said to my sister that he was probably hurt very badly from the accident. When they arrived home, my father told our family of the incident and urged us to watch the evening news that would probably cover it. As the news would unfold, the faces of the people involved in the accident were displayed on the sister. My sister tugged at my father's shirt and pointed to the face of one of the victims. "Daddy, that's the man I saw. What happened to him?" My father's face went pale. The faces shown were people who died in the accident. All of them died on the spot. I was curious, to say the least. I'm sure she wouldn't lie. But as I'm not there when it took place, I couldn't reach a definitive conclusion regarding the matter. As time went on, as most things in life, the memory faded away from me, the thought not resurfacing itself in my head until years later. My family moved into a new house a while ago. It was a 2-story bungalow with a large tree next to it. It looked like any typical house, really. As a day of rigorous unpacking ends, we all went to our respective rooms. My sister's room was conveniently located near the tree outside on the 2nd floor, where it can be looked through the room's window. I'm not sure if this was past midnight or before it, but the silence of our house that night was broken by the screams of my sister. I rushed into my sister's room, my parents arriving earlier. She was sobbing uncontrollably, tightly embracing my mother. I was about to ask when I realized this was probably related to her sensitive perception. I kept my mouth shut and quietly went back to my room. I'll probably get the clear answer tomorrow anyway, right? As I've anticipated, my sister told her story the next day during breakfast. She had claimed that when she was about to go to sleep, she felt a cold breeze coming from the window. She went to close it and then saw a figure crouching on the tree's branches, that of an old woman, hair as white as the moon itself, with claws of 3 on each hand, smiling and looking at her with crimson red eyes. I find her description at the time quite over the top, like something out of a stereotypical horror movie. I pushed aside my thoughts when she expressed her desire to change rooms. My father, who was quiet throughout the time, nodded and asked who would volunteer to exchange rooms with my sister. I gazed upon my other siblings, their eyes facing the ground, showing reluctance, maybe fear. I glanced at my sister to see her dejected face. Although I find the whole thing quite absurd, seeing the pained expression on my sister made me make up my mind. I volunteered. My sister, beaming with delight, expresses her gratitude over and over. But then she said, "But brother, I know how you are. Please don't do something stupid, please." I nonchalantly nodded, not giving much thought to her words. Fate probably had disagreements regarding my attitude. That night, after relocating my stuff to my new room, I went to to my desk to prepare the report for an upcoming presentation. I sat there for what maybe felt like an hour when I felt a cold breeze from behind. I glanced behind me to see the window had opened slightly. At first, I paid no heed to it, with the thought that I probably had just not properly closed it. But then, I felt the urge to go have a look through the window to confirm for myself of what my sister saw. It took slowly, steady steps towards the window, the sounds of cricket outside matching my beating heart, and with feelings of uncertainty, I looked outside towards the tree. There was nothing there. Like an anticlimax movie in a horror movie, I felt somewhat disappointed, but somewhat relieved. It is then that I felt quite stupid regarding the whole matter. I chuckled slightly, my thoughts that the possibility of someone or something to be dangling on a tree outside my room to be absurd. And with a confident tone, I said,
"Hey, if you're really out there, then why don't you show up in my face?"
As those words left my lips, the sounds of crickets outside and the breeze that just blew now suddenly died, leaving behind an eerie silence and nothingness. I stood there frozen in place. I didn't know what to make of my situation. My imagination was getting the best of me, as I could have almost swore that the branches were swaying on their own, without any aid from the wind, as if the trees itself was coming to life. As ridiculous as it sounds, I even started to hear things, whispers to be exact. Of what topic, I'm not sure. Given the nature of the circumstance, I wouldn't be surprised if this was an issue only discussed by mediums and psychics. And to add it all up, images of a white-haired woman lunging at me kept popping up inside my head. The whispers and images began to intensify to my horror, trying to push me over the edge of my own sanity. Suddenly, a knock came on my door, purging my senses from those abominations.
"Brother, are you awake?"
my sister said on the other side of the door. The whispering, the moving branches, those horrid images in my mind had all stopped. I bent down on my knees, trying to catch my breath. I felt the wind that had been struck out of me. I wiped away the sweat on my face, seeing the small puddle of perspiration soaking on the wooden floor below me.
"Brother, are you listening? Are you alright in there?"
I could feel the urgency in her voice.
"Yeah, I'm alright. My mind just wandered off a bit. Anything you need, sis?"
I spoke out, trying my best to maintain my composure.
"Just checking up on ya."
She spoke softly, out of relief perhaps. After a few moments in silence, she said again,
"I'm worried about you, brother." "Nothing to worry about, sis."
I almost stammered.
"You should go back to bed. It's getting late and I'm thinking of going to sleep now."
"Okay." She seemed really hesitant in reply, but then I heard her footsteps moving away from my door. As their footsteps faded away, I gathered my thoughts, trying to make sense of the whole matter. Was I imagining things? Did I become so paranoid, letting my imagination get the best of me? My eyes darted to the clock hanging on my wall. 2 a.m. I've been standing by the window for hours. Slowly, my gaze shifted to the window in front of me, and with all the resolve I still have, picked myself up and looked through the window. There was nothing there.
"I must be tired,"
I thought to myself. I closed the window, went to bed, and hoped for a good night's rest. I woke up the next day feeling somewhat groggy. As the cobwebs cleared, I sat on my bed and tried to make sense of the event that occurred last night. Reaching no conclusion, I decided to consult my sister later. I got up from bed and went to the bathroom to take a shower. As I drenched myself under the shower, I suddenly felt a stinging sensation on my back. The pain was so terrible that I almost fell to the floor. I got out of my shower and went in front of the mirror with my back facing it, trying to see if there were any cuts. To my horror, the reflection shown were 6 long scratch marks on my back. Each 3 were on the left side and on the other side of my back. I never told my family, especially my sister. I didn't want to upset them. I tried telling myself to believe that I caused the scratches on my back while I was asleep. Some days I even do believe that lie I fabricated in my own head. To my relief, for the few months my family stayed before we moved away for unrelated and trivial reasons. That was the last time something like that occurred, as sudden as it happened. There were no longer similar occurrences happening, leaving behind a deeply imprinted memory in me. As I end this story, I try to reflect on what had happened, trying to make sense of all this. Though regarding this matter nothing is certain, I suppose. Author's notes. I envy the people who can accept the existence of the supernatural. I also envy the people who can flat out deny it. Maybe there are things in life that it's best not understood. But it can't be denied that the uncertainty, the conflicts between believing and not believing that occurs within me is quite tiresome. Alright, so before I start the story, like this right here is the picture that goes along with the story, alright? So that's nice. Alright, let's get into the actual story. This is put together by Pennsylvania Jack of pajack.com, and it's the Witch of Ridley Creek, and this actually happened. All this crap actually happened, alright? So, cool. Do you believe in witchcraft? Do you believe in witches? Down through the centuries, many people have, and evidence of such things has been debated long and hard. In the late 1600s, in the town of Salem, Massachusetts, earned everlasting fame because many supposed witches were actually brought to trial before the Puritan fathers. Several were found guilty of such and hanged by the neck until dead. There were other witchcraft trials in the early colonial days, but none ever received as much publicity and renown as those in Salem. Even colonial Pennsylvania got on the act. One and only one person was ever tried for witchcraft in William Penn's province. The year was 1684, and her name was Margaret Matson. Margaret and her husband arrived in this new world before Penn, before the land was ever granted to him by England's King Charles II. They were Swedish, and along with their neighbors made up the first group of immigrants to settle along the lower Delaware River. They soon would be displaced by even more numerous English settlers that followed Penn. That was probably the cause of it. Margaret and her husband were very successful farmers. Having arrived early, they claimed much good river-bottom land, good for crops and the raising of cattle. Later arriving Dutch, and particularly the English, found they had to look harder and go farther inland to find suitable lands to claim. There was not a little jealousy regarding these Swedish farmers. They didn't even have the decency to speak English, for goodness sake. By 1684, the Matsons were settled along the Ridley Creek, a tributary of the Delaware River, which it joined at Upland, present-day Chester, PA. And so, as often happens in the case of jealousy, false rumors were started, and well believed by others as they spread. If an Englishman's cow failed to give milk, it's because it's been hexed. If an Englishman's crops did not grow well, there had to be a reason. It must be that old Swedish woman. She was a witch and was casting spells. Or so the rumor spread. Eventually, one of the English farmers went so far as to file a complaint with the authorities charging Margaret Matson was indeed a witch. A date was set for her trial. A jury of 21 Englishmen were selected. The proprietor himself, William Penn, would preside over the trial as judge. Of course, in those days, the defendant was not provided with legal counsel, and poor Margaret Matson couldn't even speak English. The prosecution tried to ask Margaret many questions. Finally, the gist of the matter came down to 2 questions asked of Margaret by none other than William Penn himself. Art thou a witch? Doth you fly through the air on a broomstick? Margaret, of course, not understanding the questions at all, seemed to answer in the affirmative, prosecuting attorney and the English farmers who coveted Matson's lands were delighted. It seemed Margaret had confessed to the crimes, but William Penn had sensed the whole thing was a sham. But the charges were trumped up to deprive these English settlers of their property. As the chief judge, he deliberated. Then he announced to the court that there was nothing to the laws of province that made it a crime to fly about on a broomstick. Not guilty, Penn decreed. Let the woman go. But Penn's advisors quickly pointed out that it was against English law and the law of the Commonwealth to be a witch. She could not be found totally innocent. So William Penn compromised. He assessed a fine on Margaret and forbid her to practice any witchcraft for a period of 2 years. He realized, of course, that she had never practiced it at all. Needless to say, the English farmers were downtrodden, but the will of the proprietor will stand. Margaret Matson and her husband continued to live on the banks of the Delaware River for many a year. To the best of anyone's knowledge, she nor anyone else was ever again accused of being a witch. Postscript. The tale, as related above, was compiled from sources that are suspect in their historical accuracy. In addition, it was additionally enlivened by the author's sense of the telling of the tale. One should, as I believe once Mark Twain pronounced, never let the facts get in the way of a good story. I recently came across Margaret Matson, Accused Witch by Sheila W. Martin. Miss Martin is/was an associate editor of the Bucks County Panorama. Her story was obtained from the archives of American Swedish Historical Foundation in Philadelphia. Miss Martin's story sticks closely to the factual version, including actual transcript from the 1684 trial. I include the following information. Just get the story straight. Margaret and her husband, Niles Matson, were a group of Swedish settlers who landed near Wilmington, Delaware in 1638. First settling along Christiana Creek in what is now Delaware, they moved to the vicinity of Upland. Several land transactions by Niles Matson appear in colonial records, and by 1680 it appears that they owned land along both Crum Creek and perhaps Ridley Creek as well. They were well-established members of the community. Early records sometimes call him Niels, and at other times Niels, and Neels and Neals. Whether the motive of her accusers were the Matsons' land or simply petty jealousies over the matters remains unclear. Most of the testimony given is hearsay. Not one witness accused Margaret of a direct act of witchcraft. William Penn is portrayed in my original version of the story as the true hero, defending Margaret as well as he could from what he truly knew to be false charges. The record puts Penn in an even better light, as not only were the Swedes on the trial jury, but Margaret was provided with an interpreter as well. Margaret stated to the court after the testimony of many witnesses, several of whom are Swedish also, that she denieth all things, and the witnesses speak only by hearsay. The jury, after quick deliberation, found her guilty of having the common fame of a witch, but not guilty in matter and form as she stands indicted. So Margaret was only guilty of being considered a witch. Her husband Niles paid £50 to assure her good behavior for a period of 6 months. It is most interesting to note in 1684 that there was no law against witchcraft in Pennsylvania, and that William Penn has abolished the death penalty in his colony for all but willful murder. Laws against witchcraft were not imposed until 1718, when they were forced upon the colony by England's Privy Council. So it is interesting to speculate what actions would or could have been taken against Margaret if the jury pronounced her of actually practicing witchcraft. Why did the trial even commence in the first place if no law was broken? In spite of this, the verdict returned may have well averted a sudden rush of similar jealousy-based charges against other equally innocent women, as happened in Salem, Massachusetts, when one conviction led to another. So what basically happened, in layman's terms, or like short, summarize. So this girl, Margaret Matson, she was accused of being a witch, and she was tried in a court. And so William Penn was the judge, and he said, "Oh, hey, you're not a witch, so I'm just gonna tell them that you were found not guilty, and I'm gonna send you back to your house and just forbid you from practicing witchcraft for 2 years, which she wasn't even practicing witchcraft in the first place. So whatever." But in the original story, it says that she was given an interpreter, and blah 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 blah. Yeah, denieth all things, and that the witnesses speaketh only by hearsay. Yeah, and the jury was having the common fate of a witch, but not guilty in a manner and form as she stands indicted. So what that means is, like, she was thought to be a witch, but is not guilty, but as she was convicted of the crime. So that's pretty much it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you later, or tomorrow, or 2 days. That's how long it takes to edit a video. So bye.
Witch Encounter by Ghost Rider 123. This experience took place when I was just 6. I do not remember much of it though. I do remember a bit of the spirit's face. As my uncle told me, I was with him walking through the creepy streets of a village at 2 o'clock at night in Illinois. Suddenly, I saw a woman in front of me. Let me describe her. She had long, rough hair, and her eyes were like pieces of marble. She was wearing a white nightgown, but when I looked at her feet, they were turned the opposite side. I couldn't believe my eyes. I freaked out. Me and my uncle quickly ran away from there. We looked back, but she was gone. But when we turned to run, again she appeared. This time, she was in a long black dress. My uncle tried to communicate with the spirit. He asked him, "What does she want?" But he didn't receive any answer. After a few minutes, she was gone. For about a year, we had plenty of experiences like this, but I would like to share them in another post. Please, if anybody has some knowledge about this, do tell me. I would like to have some opinions from you. We did call some of the ghost hunters, but they failed to find anything. Also, every night when I go to sleep, I hear pictures falling down, cups breaking, doors creaking, laughter, crying, babies crying, and many other scary things. This is so annoying to me. I'm now 15, but I haven't got rid of these experiences. I do need help, please. My story hasn't ended yet. There are lots more things like these I want to share. You could also send me private messages. Thanks for reading.